Today we've got an updated tier list for the mini patch 12.5b. There wasn't a tremendous amount of changes, but enough that we wanted to make sure you guys are up to date. So let's get straight into it and start off with the bot lane, as this mini patch seemed to be mostly aimed at this role. The same few faces have been dominating the AD carry position for the entirety of Season 12, so it was good to finally see a few changes. These were fairly subtle though, and haven't completely shifted this role like some may have wanted. Aphelios got nerfed, and this was mainly aimed at the pro scene and at very high elo. We don't include Aphelios in our low elo tier list because of simply his difficulty and his poor win rate, and as you'd expect, it's dropped even lower and it's currently less than 45%. So unless you're a one trick, this champion is just not worth playing in low elo. Ashe, Lucian and Draven all received minor buffs, and they have helped out marginally, but they aren't enough to take them out of the A tier. Draven definitely performs better the higher rank you go, and overall he just doesn't quite have the same impact in low elo. Varus also got buffed, and it's basically just not been enough, and he's still one of the lowest performing AD carries. He just doesn't really suit this hyper carry meta, and he's been having a bit of a poor season overall. We moved Samira up to the A tier following her buffs in patch 12.5, and we're happy to say we got this one right. Samira is performing much better since these changes, and is now on par with those other A tier situational champions. Zeri got nerfed yet again, but as you'd expect, she's still fairly broken. Jinx finally got nerfed too, and this does knock her down from the god tier, but she's still more than comfortable in the S tier. Jinx is also still the most played AD carry in the game, and she has been alongside Jhin for this whole season 12 so far. So that's the changes really, and here's the updated tier list for this position. Vayne, Jhin and Veigar are having a blast this patch and occupy the god tier for this role. Just behind them in the S tier there's Jinx, Seraphine, Kog'Maw and Zeri. So we predicted Seraphine's rise to the S tier following her buffs in patch 12.5, and we're really happy to say that she is an excellent choice in the bot lane. Full AP or utility focused Seraphine in this role just has such a crazy impact, and despite still having a very low play rate here, her win rate is really impressive. Seraphine offers so much from this position, and when you get a bit of a lead, you scale and spike quickly and just brings so much to the table. Damage, utility, wave clear, poke, sustain, and of course the ability to lock down entire teams with that ultimate, which is arguably one of the most satisfying abilities in the game to land. AP Seraphine is sincerely underrespected, and quite often people just don't realise how strong it can be. If you haven't tried it yet, what are you waiting for? As a bit of a tip, try playing it alongside Senna, as this combo just feels unbeatable. Vayne is truly having a wonderful time again this season. Various nerfs to her AD carry peers have simply made her rise back to the top, especially in low elo. Vayne is now pickable in the vast majority of games, and you can feel confident that most of the time you can come out of lane ahead or even, and start doing the things that Vayne really does best. Despite her being a fairly high skill ceiling champion, she does extremely well in low elo, and the main reason for this is that people simply do not understand how to shut her down. I've been playing a lot of this champion recently, and she just feels really good. There's still going to be those games and those lanes where you may struggle, but now you have such insanely quick power spikes, and you can still 1v1 almost any AD carry in the game. Whatever lane you're playing against as Vayne, if they've wasted their basic ability rotation, you just press R, run at them until you find yourself 2 kills up. As you all already know, Vayne's scaling is just nuts, and she just is the best champion to play in low elo from this AD carry role at the moment. Lucian has had a couple of minor buffs recently, and he's really starting to feel like the Lucian that we all know and love. Lucian Nami is still an absolute terror, so don't be afraid to spam this combo for some fairly easy wins. Lucian has suffered a bit so far this season due to the long range meta and the tendency for hyper carries to just simply outscale him. But now, as these recent buffs come in, he's forcing his way back in. Due to Lucian's low range kit, he does cope much better with those melee heavy compositions, and now we're seeing a lot more low range picks like assassins in the mix. Rather than just artillery and utility mages, he's having a much better time. Lucian has always had the ability to pop off in lane, but now it's just a bit easier for him to do so, as there's really not too many threats that can beat him, as everyone is still playing enchanters. Lucian is creeping up and sitting quietly in a very good spot at the moment, so if you've got good history with this champion, it's a fantastic choice if the other champions are banned or taken away. Honestly, that covers the majority of changes for the patch 12.5b tier list. This mini patch update was primarily aimed at the bot lane, so that's mostly what you'll need to know for that role. However, if you want to see the rest of the roles and their updates due to stats and win rates, stick around and we'll let you know what champions you should be playing. Don't forget, if you're looking to try any new champions or you want to know about builds and runes, we have all of that information and plenty more on our website, and it's just so easily accessible. Search for your champion, import the runes, and off you go. Let's go over to the top lane changes now, and in the god tier we have the same few choices: Kayle, Yorick and Garen. In the S tier behind them we have plenty of other really strong options too. We missed out Trundle in our 12.5 tier list, so we've popped him back up in our S tier, as he's a very good choice, especially with Hullbreaker. Darius isn't performing as well as the other champions here, so he moves down to the A tier. We really thought Kennen was going to do better this patch after the buff in 12.5, but unfortunately he's still just not quite there yet, so we're putting him back down into that B tier. So Hullbreaker is still in full swing and Yorick is the main culprit who can really abuse this. Other champions like Trundle, Scion and so on are having great success with it too, but Yorick just encapsulates everything that's strong about this item. Yorick's ability to 1v2 or 1v3 while split pushing with his maiden just make him feel so damn potent, and it's so frustrating for your enemies when they feel like they're winning a fight, they look behind them and then you're just hitting their nexus. The split push Hullbreaker meta has really erupted over the last month or two, and it's truly a viable way for top laners to win more games now that teleport is no longer as competitive. Yorick is not only in a fantastic spot, but players really just do not understand what he actually does and how to actually beat him with this split push strategy. Kayle has had a mental win rate this season from that top lane, and when you combine that with a huge amount of games played, it really demonstrates how much of a beast this champion is right now. Kayle is just pumping out those wins non-stop, and it seems like players in low elo just do not punish her enough in the early game. Kayle is extremely vulnerable in the lane phase and can easily get too far behind and never actually ramp up, but if you ignore her and let her farm, before you know it she's level 16 and 1v5ing your whole team. Late game Kayle is just like nothing you've ever seen before, and she turns into an AP one-shotting machine gun capable of deleting entire teams no matter how much health or how many defensive items they have. If you enjoy this champion and her playstyle, right now is the perfect time to play her. Singed has a very unique playstyle, and this just means not many people play him, but his win rate is still ridiculously high this season, and we wanted to make sure you guys are aware of this. It doesn't really matter how your lane goes on Singed, as long as you don't become irrelevant, as in the mid game you become a bit of a monster. Rylai's into Demonic Embrace just synergizes beautifully with this champion, and you spike insanely hard when you've got these items. If you pick Singed into a team comp that has teammates who can buff your movement speed, it almost feels like you're cheating. This allows you to run at your enemies, fling the main carry into your team, and then just run around in circles, slowly burning away at the entire team's health pools as they can do nothing but watch themselves die. Singed players may seem a bit different, and somewhat bizarre, but they are climbing solo queue, so why not give it a go? Onto the jungle now, and we have very few new changes in this role since her updates in patch 12.5. The god tier is occupied by Rammus, Kha'Zix and Trundle. Nocturne is still performing very well, but was replaced in the god tier by Kha'Zix's resurgence in the last few weeks. After Xin Zhao's nerf in 12.5, we moved him down to the A tier, and he definitely felt the impact of these changes. He's still good in certain games, but he's no longer perma blind pickable in every single game. Last patch we moved Volibear up to the S tier, and he's just come out of nowhere. He's having a fantastic time at the moment, after what felt like we didn't see him for such a long time. So patch 12.5 made Master Yi instantly giga broken, and his win rate was above 55%. Then Riot hotfixed him and accidentally nerfed him into the core of the earth, and his win rate went below 48%. In patch 12.5b they buffed him again to compensate, and now he's sitting back in a very healthy position. He's not quite the best champion in the game, but he's more than capable of carrying games in low elo, and he's going to keep his spot in the S tier. Master Yi has always been a huge pub stomping beast in low ranks, and now that he's settled back into it after this weird up and down period, he's still one of the most popular choices in that role for this elo. Master Yi's ability to clean up fights, snowball games and 1v5 pentakill teams with ease if they have no crowd control just make him an incredible pick this season. We do talk a lot about win rates, but it's a huge part of judging these champions tiers, so if you're interested in finding out more about these stats, you can find them all underneath our tier lists on our website, so don't be afraid to check that out if you love this kind of stuff. Kha'Zix has come back into the meta with a vengeance and is sitting at one of the highest win rates in low ranks. He did get forgotten about for a while, but now he's truly back in business. Kha'Zix's return to the Rift has instantly given him a respectable ban rate, and people have just remembered what this champion is capable of. Kha'Zix's isolated damage can simply allow him to destroy his enemies in just a few clicks, and before you know it he's flanked your team and one-shot everyone who actually matters. Kha'Zix also has the capability to shred down major objectives in the blink of an eye, and he can take down those barons and dragons before you even have a chance to ward them. Kha'Zix has a fair amount of build versatility too, and all of which make him really strong. He's also a great abuser of Serpent's Fang, which is such a valuable answer in this hypercarry enchanting meta. To add to that point, this also brings a ton of squishy targets to the game, and we all know just how quickly Kha'Zix can disintegrate them and remove them from the Rift. Nocturne is still terrorizing games with this patch, and he's had a real resurgence in the last few weeks. He's just so unpredictable, and he can gank so often and from anywhere really due to his ultimate semi-global range. If Nocturne manages to get an Axiom arc, he is insanely hard to play against, as his ultimate just seems to be always off cooldown. If you're playing some squishy bot laners, you can be punished so often because of this, especially if you're out of summoner spells. Nocturne's repeat ganks are devastating, and before you know it he's got a 20-minute Dragon Soul, a boatload of damage, and he's basically unkillable too. Nocturne is a very good choice to go for this patch, and especially though at low ranks where people just do not respect his ability to ult you on repeat. Onto the mid lane now, and again not too much has changed. In the god tier we still have Ahri, Anivia and Veigar. Yes, Veigar is in the god tier for both mid and bot lane at the moment, as he's just performing so well in low elo. Vex has not had the best few weeks, and her win rate has dipped a bit considering how strong she was a few patches ago. This means she's going to drop down to the A tier for now, and we'll see how well she does over the next few weeks. Diana is slowly starting to creep up in popularity in the mid lane recently, and her win rate is surprisingly good, which brings her straight into that S tier. Zilean also moves up a tier, and Talon comes back into this tier list with a pretty healthy win and play rate. This champion is definitely far better in high elos, but if you can play him, he's definitely good at low ranks too. So we are not going to bore you by talking about Ahri yet again in yet another video. She's still having a great time, but you should all know that already by now. Anivia, however, is a champion we haven't spoken about in a while, despite her being a fantastic pick for the entirety of this season, and sitting in our god tier ranks for the majority of it too. Anivia is just such a fantastic control mage, and she offers so many strengths. She's got wave clear, she's got burst, zoning, AoE damage, AoE CC, and fantastic scaling as well. Anivia is so difficult to shut down in low elo. As long as her positioning is on point, she can feel impossible to kill. Anivia's passive makes her so much more harder in lane to take down, and therefore gives the majority of those early game assassins and snowballing matchups a much harder time. In the lane phase, most mages and matchups don't actually have the damage to kill her through her passive, which means she's just going to be such a safe pick in that mid lane. And when Anivia gets fed, she just becomes ridiculously strong. She just simply flaps around the map and one-shots everyone with a few basic abilities. Neeko is still stupidly underplayed, and is sitting in an amazing position ever since her buffs a few patches ago. Nobody seems to understand how to play against her, and she's got a ridiculously high win rate despite people not playing her at all. Neeko has been dominating the majority of games since those buffs, and Neeko one-tricks have never been happier. On first impression, she does seem a bit complicated, but generally all you have to do is just get stuck into teams, press your ultimate and press Sonya's, and watch your LP climb and climb away. Neeko's team fighting is so damn strong, and this makes her so much more successful in low elo where teamfights seem to happen all the time. Once you've got a few items on this champion, the damage you can deal is nuts, and people just do not expect it. If you haven't tried this champion already, now is a great time to give her a go. Zilean has moved up to the A tier, and this champion is having a brilliant time this season. Zilean mid with Everfrost is winning a ton of games at all ranks, and this champion just provides so much utility and damage, and it's just so easy to do it. You shove out the wave in mid lane and then you just roam to your heart's content, locking your enemies down with Everfrost and your double bombs and laughing as they have no option other than to die right in front of you. Zilean's movement speed boosts and slows are super impactful too, and the ultimate is just game changing no matter what point of the game you're in. He also scales incredibly well into all stages of the game, and is just a bit of a dark horse so far this season. Finally, let's take a quick look at support, and again there's only a few changes. In the god tier we've got Sona, Soraka and Janna. We did think that Seraphine would have a better result from those buffs as a support, but she's not quite as strong as we'd expected. Unlike her S tier position in the bot lane, we're going to move her down to A tier in support. Morgana is also not doing as well as previously, and Leona has been affected a bit by the Locket of the Eyed Solari nerfs, so they both drop down a tier 2. Senna moves up to the S tier, and this champion is truly one of the best champions in the game right now. Senna's scaling from this role is just unbelievable, and if she gets to the late game with all that extra range and damage, she can genuinely feel stronger than any AD carry you've ever seen, as a support. Senna doesn't actually really have a super weak part of the game either. Obviously she's not as strong in the early game before she scales, but she still has good poke, good harass, good stain, and the irritating ability to bully lanes easily. Senna's healing, her global presence with her ultimate, and just generally her scaling damage make her a ridiculously good support pick right now, in every single rank. Janna is another pick who's performing really well at all ranks, and has done ever since those changes that came in a few patches ago. She just seems to excel at everything. She has peel, engage, disengage, healing, shielding, and boosts and buffs from her itemization. Janna fares well into all team compositions, all matchups, and she's just so damn good in almost every single game. She really is one of the best supports to go for at the moment, so if you haven't picked her up into your champion pool, you really should do. Lulu is still having a fantastic season too. It's a season all about enchanters and hypercarries, so Lulu is just the perfect one to go for. Now she does lack sustain, and that's why those champions like Sona and Soraka edge above her. But if you have the right bot lane combination, Lulu is just immense. Lulu with Twitch, Jinx, Cogmore and so on is just so damn difficult to beat, and the sheer amount of peeling and survivability that she offers them is just incredible. Then you've got the boosts she gives them as well, which just make them deal even more damage. Lulu has always been a very complete support champion, and has always excelled at the things she's good at. Lulu will remain a very solid pick for the remainder of this season, as long as nothing too major changes. So that's going to bring us to the end of our 12.5B and mid-patch update video all about our Mobalytics tier list. We hope you agree with the majority of our tier list, and let us know in the comments who you're having the most success with. Don't forget to check out our website for all of the stats that we include in this video alongside the builds, runes, guides and plenty more. Thanks for watching and we'll see you soon. Take care.